But this is the breaking line tonight, because in the past few minutes, the government has published key witness statements from Deputy National Security Advisor Matt Collins. These are the ones that he made as part of the collapsed China spy case. Collins says that Chinese intelligence services were highly capable and conduct large-scale espionage operations, like the one that's on the front of several national newspapers, hacking into government secrets. But he went on to say that the government is committed to pursuing a positive relationship with Beijing. And the Conservatives have hit out, saying this statement falls short of everything that was ultimately requested. They want the full China files. I'm just going to remind you, before I go to an expert guest on this, of what was said at PMQs today by our Prime Minister.
On Monday, the Security Minister repeatedly told the House that ministers did not take decisions, that it was the Deputy National Security Advisor who had full freedom. Is the government seriously saying that only one man, the Deputy National Security Advisor, had anything to do with this failure? Is he seriously saying that the Deputy did not discuss with the National Security Advisor, did not discuss with the Home Secretary or with anyone in Downing Street? Is the Prime Minister seriously saying that?
Yes.
Well, I am joined now by the Executive Director of the Interparliamentary Alliance on China. It's Luke de Pulford. Luke, thank you very, very much for joining us tonight. Can I just ask you, just to explain to me, like I'm a 5-year-old child, OK, what the significance of what we heard in Parliament today was, and what the significance of the witness statements that we have just had revealed to us are, please?
OK, so the leader of the opposition, Kemi Badenoch, said very clearly, are you blaming the Deputy National Security Advisor? Are you saying that the evidence that was provided to the Crown Prosecution Service in this case all depended on him, and that he acted with no political interference whatsoever? He didn't speak to anybody about the evidence he was including. And the Prime Minister said yes. And when he said yes, everybody's eyebrows were raised at that point, because that would be very odd to have the Deputy National Security Advisor not speak to his boss, not speak to the Home Office or anyone else. So everybody was thinking, well, that's very strange. Then these files were published, and this is the key, and this is what I think many people will miss. The first statement that Matt Collins produced under the Conservative government included no paragraph about the government's current policy. The second statement, which was under the Labour government in February 2025, said, and it began with, it is important for me to emphasise, however, that the UK government is committed to pursuing a positive relationship with China. The third statement also includes that paragraph, but then finishes it with a statement of what was in the Labour Party manifesto. The reason that this is so important is that the government has been saying for the past couple of weeks that this was all about the previous government's policy. It had nothing to do with current Labour policy. And if that's the case, there would be no reason for these things to be included, because they were irrelevant, in the Prime Minister's own words.
And the fact that these were included, so in the witness statements that were provided, sorry, was it to the Director of Public Prosecutions, is that right? Yeah,
that's correct.
So to those statements, they included the new Labour Party line about China, which is that basically we want to get along with them for money, and then also a quote from the Labour Party manifesto.
That is correct. So that completely undermines what the Prime Minister has been saying on this for 2 weeks, which was this was all about the Tories. This was all about the Conservative government's policy on China, because that's when the offences were committed. And that would have been reasonable, but now it looks very unreasonable, because there are two statements of Labour Party policy in the two statements produced by the Deputy National Security Advisor under the Labour Party. So the key question here is, why did he include those? Are we expected to believe that the Deputy National Security Advisor, acting completely on his own, decided, well, I didn't do it in the first statement, but in the second and third statement, I'm going to include an irrelevant statement of the existing government's policy? It really makes no sense at all, and it calls into question everything that was said in the House of Commons today.
Gosh, OK. So what specific... Because the Prime Minister, of course, is, as we keep hearing about, aside from being the son of a toolmaker, which I thought was obvious for numerous different reasons, is also the former head of the DPP, the former head of the CPS, high-flying lawyer. So very careful with his words, you would have thought. So did he say anything specifically in Parliament today that you think might now get him?
He said that the Deputy National Security Advisor did not have any discussions about his evidence with pretty much anybody within Number 10 or the Home Office.
And yet, miraculously, the line from the Labour Party manifesto and... Right, I see. So, go on, you go.
I was going to say, that doesn't make any sense, because if that were the case, then he would have done it for the first statement under the Tories, and he did not. So it looks very much like someone leaned upon him to include a statement about the current policy, which was soft, and the third statement is even softer. These statements get more dovish as time goes on.
And what the Tories are now saying, as I understand it, is that, OK, we've got these witness statements, more questions raised. And again, I will just say that I don't think there will be a single man, woman or child watching this show right now that believes the government's current line on this. And that is very telling, right? So what the Tories now want is what they are calling the full China files to be released, which I did the Prime Minister say that he would release that today? I don't know. But what are these files? What are we expecting from that?
They want to get the minutes of the meetings about any discussion relating to this case, because the suspicion is that it was seen by the government that this case would cause negative diplomatic blowback from China. They thought, OK, well, if we end up prosecuting these guys, it's going to really hurt our relationship. We're in the midst of trade talks with China. We don't want this right now. It's very inconvenient. So that's the suspicion from the Conservative side. So they want to know what was discussed here, because if there was anybody within government that said, we can't have this espionage trial, it's going to hurt our economic relations with China, that would be extremely incendiary, extremely serious, and a dereliction of national security.
But we were also told that didn't happen. That's the thing as well. That's the other kicker, as I understand it as well, is that we were told on record in the House of Commons today by the Prime Minister that has never happened. So if it has happened, then we're in, well, someone is anyway, not me, Sir Keir Starmer, is in quite big trouble as a result of that. Right, Luke, thank you very much. We needed that. I needed to hear all that stuff anyway, just trying to wrap my head around all of this, and I know my viewers and listeners will be very grateful. And who knows, at this rate, I'll probably be speaking to you again tomorrow. So Luke de Pulford there, who's the Executive Director of the Interparliamentary Alliance on China. OK, so... Mark, your reaction to what we've just heard from there, which appears that the statements that were given to the Director of Public Prosecutions were changed and included bits from the Labour manifesto.
Yeah, very, very helpful new readers start here guide by Luke de Pulford there. The interesting thing is you get the statements, but then everybody's going to say, OK, but what was the process that actually led to those statements being crafted in that particular fashion? You know, for example, if we are to believe that the only thing that mattered was what the Conservative government of 2023 thought of China, why on earth are you including stuff from the Labour Party manifesto a year later? Extraordinary to include that. But we'd also want to know, and I think, to my mind, this is the nub of it politically, if not legally, was this chap Matthew Collins, was he sort of told, Matthew, you get on with it, go with the feeling in your bones, kind of wing it, I'm a busy man, don't come back to me about it. And Jonathan Powell, your boss, he's quite a busy man. I know he's called the National Security Advisor, but he's got a lot on his plate. So, Matt, if you don't mind just working from home for a couple of days and coming up with the best
don't send any emails to us.
Don't send any emails, and we'll take it from there.
Don't send
Did
any
that
emails.
happen? Or were there people suggesting to him, yeah, you know what, this could be a bit tricky. We're trying to get some more sort of trade with China. If it did just fall short of the necessary claims to bring a prosecution, that could be handy, Matt. Now, I don't know which happened, but it's kind of one or t'other, isn't it?
I think we've got an idea. Steve, it does stink.
There's a certain whiff to it, I'll give you that. It's not smelling great. In the defence of the way that they did it, I guess the National Security Advisor will be looking at just stuff within the nation. This sounds like international if China's involved. So that's how he gets out of it. You would imagine the deputy wouldn't be the one to deploy on China. Top of the shop. What's the matter? The national, your boss is busy doing France or something.
Yeah, Guatemala.
What's happening in China. It's almost like it splits into two different issues, which are overlap. But has something been, as Keir Starmer misled Parliament, will be the only way that it really impacts him. This is like getting, Al Capone on tax or David Lammy on fishing. The two main ways of looking at this, which really doesn't really, it matters because it'll end a career. It doesn't really matter in as much as did this government entirely acquiesce just because of bending over to China, effectively?
Yes. The other thing is that it would appear at the moment that Sir Keir Starmer is very proud of the defence that he's running an incompetent ship, which is that during this he thought, I'm not going to get the head of the national security involved, I'm not going to get involved myself, I'm not going to involve anyone in the cabinet, and we're going to let it collapse. And he's quite proud of that fact, which I find odd.
Well, the same thing happened, if we are to believe The Spectator, some years ago, in that 4 separate sources have told The Spectator that there were 2 serious hacks, one from Russia, one from China, and they're both completely covered up, and one of them, allegedly, was to save embarrassment to a former Prime Minister. Now, which one could that be, we wonder?
It was Boris Johnson. Well, that
Really?
Yes, it was.
You surprised me.
This is good. Let's go a couple of these papers up, because it's on a few of them here, so we've got to start with the Mail. So, Chinese stole secrets from Number 10 for years. Newly exposed outrage by communist regime heaps fresh pressure on Starmer over collapsed spy case. Give you a bit more detail on this. The Daily Mail understands that in a catastrophic blunder, the Chinese were allowed to buy a company.
It's beyond belief.
I can't even read it.
It's beyond belief.
We're allowed to buy.
This is during Boris's tenure, right? Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm going to have to try to get through this. In a catastrophic blunder, the Chinese were allowed to buy a company that controlled a data hub used by government departments to exchange information, including on highly classified projects. Right? We allowed them to do it. Former Number 10A Dominic Cummings yesterday said the communist superpower stole vast amounts of material, including some with the highest security classification. It was then buried as part of a pattern of whitehall behaviour in which the British state had prioritised Chinese money over its own security.
It's the sort of mistake anybody could make, really, isn't it? I've got a top secret data hub. Some chap from the Chinese Communist Party's made a decent bid for it. Why don't I hand it over to him?
The thing is, that is so much worse than 2 fresh-faced young gits.
No, I don't agree with that.
Oh, come on.
I don't agree with that.
2 fresh-faced young gits who, we don't know allegedly what they did and what information they gave. What access? They surely cannot have had access to the sort of information.
No, but there is a difference here, right? One is just staggering incompetence, and we failed to buy any virus protection software or a firewall for all this highly secret national information, and the Chinese Communist Party agents managed to break in. It doesn't look like you exactly need James Bond-esque ability to break in, because we just haven't defended ourselves well enough. Nevertheless, these would have been Chinese agents. The difference here is the supposition is that there are British citizens who were spying for the Chinese Communist Party. The impact may have been less, but it's about the malintent of those involved, right? And that's the difference between the spying issue and the failure to have proper security protocols for the other issue.
But the level of information and data would have been...
The incompetence may be worse than the malign intent in outcome.
Both can be true. It can be terrible that you don't actually prosecute people who are Brits spying on Britain, and also terrible when you hire Mr. Wu's security services to keep all your data sensitive.
And spring rolls on the side.
Absolutely bonkers. Look, there's more about this as well, because there are other aspects to this. Like, do you remember when the government basically made it easier for people to hack into things like WhatsApp, remove the security encryption from it as well? Who was going to exploit that? Oh, maybe China. So thank you. Well done, everybody.
What else shall we have a quick look at? Shall we go to the... what do you want to talk about, Steve? You tell me what you want to discuss with us.
Well, look, it's a sexy story, isn't it? It's a spy crisis and it's a political drama, all wrapped into one. China, I think, is the big story, because it's most of the front pages over here. Certainly with the Daily Express saying, Kemi, it stinks of a China cover-up. It shows how the front pages can be out of date, because now we have the uncover part of the cover-up. We actually now have the witness statements, and it's not really helped out. If this was the panacea that Keir Starmer thought would sort it all out, he was a little bit wide of the mark. So now we know more of the details of what the information that was used to come to the decision of not actually pursuing the case, of not saying that China was an enemy. And it's exactly what we all predicted a week ago. When we heard this story, we knew, oh, I bet something's happened to make sure that they didn't offend China because we need the money. We need the dirty, dirty money, and that's the way it goes. That's exactly what we've got. We've got quotes from Section 6 that's been lifted. The government is committed to pursuing positive economic relationship with China. So that's why they've been avoiding this. It fits in tightly with other stories on the front pages about China stealing secrets from Number 10 for years. I mean, some of the details of that case. China managed to buy a company that was in charge of the IT. Come on, this is like a slapstick comedy. How can that be the level of security that we've got in the UK? It's terrifying. But again, they kept their heads down, didn't want to offend anyone. And it fits in because now we know that it was understood that China were a national security threat. And what was done about it? Well, they continued to keep their heads down. That's the horrible part of the story. The stuff that might be the actual threat to Keir Starmer would be the idea of what's it called? The misleading Parliament. At the moment, no smoking gun on that one.